It's exciting to be here for the second time giving a talk about relationships. I was here with the folks then a few months ago. Um, kind of more formal with rows of seats and everything, and being interviewed on a stage. I actually like this more. I like everybody sitting down, and I feel more relaxed. So I'm also tired today, but feeling also very grounded. And I thought that considering the community that is here, what I really want to focus on is abundance as a mindset. And I'll kind of give a short intro to who I am, why I'm here speaking, what was my path, in a very concise way of discovering that I have abundance and that it can guide me in life in lots of different ways. And I'll then talk a little bit about the community in London, specifically about different ways that relationships can look like. And then we'll probably move on to questions. And if nobody has any questions, then
I'll come up with some. I have plenty. After 5 years of open and relating, I have more questions than ever before.
So, there's not a lot, but there's quite a few familiar faces, quite a few friends and people that I have a lot of affection and love for. And a lot of new people that I hope to meet down the road at some point, tonight or at other events. What I love mostly about relating openly, generally, is that it's a path towards community building. For me, a relationship is not just about one-to-one. That is the beginning, but it kind of expands and grows, and ultimately it connects us all. And it took me a long time to realize and really internalize how important that is. So, I'm Roy. I'm 52 years old. I was monogamous and not really questioning that for most of my adult life. And I was in long-term monogamous relationships, one after the other, kind of a serial monogamous person. And there was always something that for me was missing, was like restricting me, that I felt like I was confined in that structure. But I couldn't really know, I didn't understand what it was. I didn't know there was another option. So what would often happen is that I would be with a partner, things were good, I love them, they love me, and then I might start developing feelings or connection with another person. And that really confused me because I felt that it was the wrong thing to do, and I felt bad for having those feelings. Or I would judge myself for not loving my partner enough because I started to develop feelings for another person. So, my options were to suppress it, sit on it, pretend it doesn't exist, to kind of flagellate myself, or break up because I could not convince myself I no longer have enough love for my partner. So that caused misery to me, caused misery to my partner. Again, there wasn't really any other option that I knew of until there was. And I would say I discovered non-monogamy and polyamory quite late in life, around when I was about 41 or so. And by chance, through going on a date after my last monogamous relationship ended, the woman telling me that she's non-monogamous, she's polyamorous, and explaining to me what that was. And there was a real kind of eureka moment. It was like, oh wow, that's actually a thing. And I like you as a person, and this is how you do dating, so I will try. And I never looked back. But I can tell you that I have made all the possible mistakes that you can make in relationships, especially kind of open relationships. I have suffered a lot. I was unconscious and confused about a lot of it. And it took me a while before I figured it out. Now, the main challenge was to start relating openly with somebody, to acknowledge that we're not only one-on-one, right? There's like basically other people involved in different ways. And my monogamous mindset, which I think of as a scarcity mindset, is basically telling me that something is wrong what I'm doing, or that I need to like hide that I'm caring, or that I'm attracted, or that I'm fancying another person. And what then happens is that I might censor details, or be limited a little bit with the truth, or not say everything, just to kind of think that I'm protecting my partner. And as long as I was in that mindset, it created issues, because ultimately my partner doesn't know what I'm not telling her, but she knows something is wrong. She knows there's something I'm not telling. So when I think about scarcity mindset, I'm kind of thinking about what society is kind of indoctrinating in us, right? That there isn't enough to go around in terms of love, romance, affection, care, empathy, sex. We're being told from a very early age that you have to kind of, when you find your one true love, hold on to them so nobody else snatches them from you. And we're being told that romance is this like ideal pie in the sky thing, but it's only possible if you do all those things and you invest in all those, in nice clothes and in expensive gifts and nice dinners and everything to kind of make the romance kind of celebrate it. And we're also being told that there is a particular trajectory of what a relationship should look like in order to be a happy, fulfilling one. Which is kind of based on I suppose, a mostly neurotypical median, kind of social medium, a median society of how a lot of people maybe do practice that. But that doesn't mean it's right for everybody. And as we know with many other things like sexuality, there are a significant percentage that doesn't think, feel, operate the way that the median does. So the idea of scarcity is tied to capitalism in many ways. And I don't want to go off, I don't want to kind of make this a political speech or an economic speech, but it's important to link those things together and to really think critically about what capitalism is teaching us also about scarcity and love and romance and sexuality. How sex became a commodity, how dating became a commodity, right? Like, we're so used to it with being transactional, everything else in life, that romance dating also has become transactional. So most of the time, and I've done it for a long time, I wasn't really conscious, I wasn't questioning it, I was just following what I saw people around me doing. I thought I should find somebody to have kids with, to have a house with, to grow old with, what's called the relationship escalator. Have you heard of the term relationship escalator? And some haven't, and that's great. And I encourage you to look it up. It's easy to find. But it's this idea that we're all set on this path that is kind of foretold, right? You date, you go exclusive, you talk about living together, you have joint friends, you get engaged, you get married, you move in together, you buy a house, you get kids, you basically grow old, and then, what, die together? I mean, you still probably die alone, right? So, what happens when we have this expectation is that anything that doesn't look like it feels like a failure. Or if our partner doesn't want that ideal, then we might, think of them as failing us because we develop these expectations. But for lots of people, it just doesn't sit right. It's not something that they need, or not something that they want. But it's really hard to operate like that in a society that is telling you this is what is expected of you. And you have your parents and your friends and your extended family and et cetera, kind of having these expectations on you. So, for example, if you want to live together but not have kids, there'll be plenty of people who tell you that something is wrong. If you don't want to live together, if you want to just live on your own and date, or like have a relationship but live single, somebody's going to basically judge that, or you will judge yourself. And when I think of abundance, I think of basically the fact that only I can know what my needs are, only I can know how I feel things, how I process things, and it's going to be different from other people. Therefore, what I need in romance, in love, etc., is going to be different. So embracing like abundance is basically saying, well, okay, I have all these needs, emotional needs, but I don't have to meet them from one person that will satisfy all of those needs altogether. And there's a lot of needs that I can develop the capacity and the ability to satisfy myself, self-soothe, self-regulate, self-love, self-care. And I can also develop deep, intimate connections with friends. You know, I can have people in my life that are not necessarily romantically or sexually in connection with me, but still have an emotional vulnerability with them that builds that intimacy. And generally, when somebody isn't feeling like obligated or feeling that weight of responsibility or providing all the emotional support for you, they're going to be a lot more relaxed about also wanting to do it when they can, but also can tell you when they don't have the capacity for it, when they don't have the space for it. And ultimately, that means that you can stay in a very authentic way of relating, because when somebody is feeling obligated, again, there is that fear of telling you when they're not able to provide it. And then they start basically either overcompensating, like not putting their own needs first. And I think that it's a very normal thing, especially in our society, is to put other people's needs before our own. Is that right? Do you do that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, when I was young, I often didn't do that. So for me, it was actually, I've always felt like if I can meet my needs, then I have capacity, I have actually more energy to help other people with theirs. But I need to first of all figure it out for myself, how my needs met. And sometimes I would be accused as being an egotistical person, being narcissistic, etc., because I did that. And I think, again, it's a misunderstanding, and it's about kind of miscommunication of expectations to basically say that. And oftentimes, if you're somebody that's so used to prioritizing other people, then when you see somebody not doing that, then that can feel quite scary, right? That's essentially kind of highlighting the shadow that you have in you of putting other people's needs before yours. One thing that really has helped me with that is the whole idea around the wheel of consent. Have you heard of the wheel of consent?
Yes.
A lot of you heard of it. Yeah, good. Again, something to look up. And the wheel of consent really is foundational for so much in human interaction, especially in intimate relationships, where it's not enough to basically communicate or ask for something that you want or offer something. It's really important that you're really aware of the intention behind it. Now, in relationships, what makes, I guess, an open relationship or polyamorous relationship kind of different from monogamy is that the level of awareness, of conscious kind of relating that is needed, that is required, is much higher to make it work well. You can probably do it unconsciously, but it's going to fall apart at some point, or there's going to be a lot of drama. Now, in monogamy, people can still benefit from a lot more consciousness, can benefit from being totally honest with each other. But if you don't do it, you can probably still manage somehow, although I would argue that you're not having the best and most authentic and fulfilling experience in a relationship that you could be having. So when I talk about open relating, I'm not actually specifically or explicitly talking about having multiple relationships or having multiple partners. That's not the point. The point is to be able to talk freely, to talk authentically, to connect at an intimate, kind of authentic level. That means that you're not hiding anything from your partner, that they see you totally. And that's very scary. That's obviously very vulnerable. So coming to terms with this vulnerability and knowing that it's not actually while it is scary, being able to show it is strength. Because if you can be vulnerable, actually what you're showing, you're projecting strength. If you can talk about your boundaries, for example, if you can actually communicate that something doesn't feel right in the moment rather than just tolerating it, then what you're doing is you're offering an invitation to the other person to meet you as close as you currently can allow them to come close to you. And that can be physical and can be emotional. But it is an invitation. It's not like go away. It's like come close, and then I'll feel safe when you know exactly how close you can come. And once I feel safe, maybe you can come closer. Right? but we need to establish that safety. And many people, for different reasons, might not feel safe around particular people, particular interactions, because we all grew up with all kinds of traumas and wounding, etc. So, yeah, back to abundance. I have been really overwhelmed sometimes in my own life with being able to hold so much love for multiple people, right? And it's not necessarily just like romantic or sexual partners, but again, just like this community, for example. All of you here wanting to learn more, like wanting to connect. When you're practicing openness, polyamory, let's say, for example, it doesn't have to be that, but it's essentially like it's a practice, almost like a muscle of what it feels like to be vulnerable with more than one person, being emotionally open to multiple people, and the romance and the sex kind of helps with that. But once you're doing it, you can also do it with friends. You can do it with more people. And what's beautiful is like when you start showing vulnerability, the other person responds and also wants to show their vulnerability. You know, so it's this kind of virtuous cycle. And if we spread that in the world, and I don't want to sound too much like Pao in terms of like and rudeness. But you know,
I'm only that way to give you space to be that way too.
Thank you. But yeah, it does feel like we're spreading these waves of love, of connection, more and more. So, and you know what I've been doing with my work is nothing particularly planned or strategic. I have been, as I mentioned, kind of open and polyamorous for about 11 years. I would say that in the last 4+ years, I feel like I've figured out what a healthy, happy, connected web of relationships really kind of can feel like, can look like, can operate like. And it is an ongoing effort to make sure that you communicate clearly with everybody, that you deal with anything that comes up, which is a conflict or miscommunication or misexpectation right away, as soon as you know about it, and make sure that it's resolved fully. And people don't build resentment over time. So there's a lot I can say about kind of communication, about conflict resolution, about jealousy and things like that. And I want to leave that to see if people have specific questions around that, and we can take that forward. But for me, there was this calling during COVID to start talking and creating content around open relating, around conscious communication and relationships. So it was really basically initially an Instagram kind of content that I just put out, and then people asked me about coaching, so I was like, okay, let's see what I can offer there. I have done coaching with friends and in different festivals and things like that, just as something that I enjoy doing, and I support friends. And but people respond, and I think that people also find that it's hard to find mainstream therapists and coaches that don't judge them or have a preconceived notion of their desire to be polyamorous or be non-monogamous as some kind of like pathology. Yeah. And I know, sadly, even in my profession, which is like the kind of psychotherapy, a lot of psychotherapists still have that kind of notion in themselves, and even if they are supposed to be totally non-judgmental, that can still kind of seep in. So part of the work I'm hoping to do in the future is actually change what's happening in the psychotherapy world to basically create, kind of elevate the understanding in counseling and therapy that this is not a pathology, it's not a symptom of some kind of wounding. Like, you can still be wounded, you can have trauma, but it can manifest also in monogamy, it can manifest in lots of different ways. So it's not directly tied to why people want to be polyamorous. And my master's thesis that I'm starting to write this year is actually going to be about whether polyamory is an orientation or an adaptation. And I'll do it with like deep interviews. And again, part of the motivation there is to make it more accessible and raise the understanding and awareness in my profession. So if you have questions, there's going to be time now to raise your hand and ask them. And also to make you aware that if you want to know more about what I do in my work, and if you also want to get some more insights in education, there's a lot of articles and videos and podcasts on my website, openrelating.love. My Instagram is openrelating. And if you want to really go to a deep dive into what expansive relationships kind of look and how to create them, then I have a 4-week course. Currently it's an online course, but if there's enough people in London that want to do it, we can do an in-person course. So it's basically a 2-hour session every week for 4 weeks.